I got hit by a car and passed out. A stranger called baby daddy in my contacts. When I woke up, my ex-boyfriend was holding my nephew, his eyes wide with fear. Our son. I'm so sorry, I'm late. From now on, I'll be a good father. I'd never seen him like this. I decided to mess with him, play along. Later, when the truth came out, he narrowed his eyes, his voice dangerously low. Hey, baby mama. About the kid. Care to explain? I scooped up the big orange cat we rescued together back in the day. What if I said it was him? Would you believe me? I got hit by a car and passed out. No big deal. The big deal was, when I opened my eyes, my ex was sitting by my bed. Thomas was holding my nephew, Oliver, and crying like a 6-foot-tall baby. I was a little dazed. I was trying to choose between the standard ex-boyfriend greetings of long time no see and what are you doing here? He spoke first. Anna, you're awake. His voice was trembling. Our son. I froze. Son? Our son? We broke up 6 years ago. We were on opposite sides of the Pacific, totally out of each other's lives. Where did a son come from? A ridiculous thought instantly shot through my confused brain. Could it be? I was in a coma after the accident? And became a mother while I was unconscious? I was about to check my stomach for a scar. But Thomas had already leaned over, pulling both me and Oliver into his arms. I'm sorry, Anna. He buried his face in my neck, his breath hot against my skin. I'm late. He kept repeating it, over and over. Trust me, I'll be a good husband, a good father. Thomas smelled of the same crisp, clean soap as he did 6 years ago. I was lost in the memory for a second. Then I pushed him away. He was crushing me. Oliver gasped for air, too. The two of us stared at Thomas like he was a total idiot. But he was still lost in his own melodrama. Anna, you have no idea how worried I was when I got that call from that kind stranger. His voice was hoarse. Thank God you're okay. Otherwise, I'd never forgive myself. I didn't understand a word he was saying. But the phrase kind stranger jogged my memory. I picked up my phone. Thomas, this person who called you. Do you have their number? I need to thank them. No, I was panicking too much. He shook his head. From the moment she asked if I was the kid's dad, my mind just went blank. Wait. The kid's dad? My eyes shot to my phone. The first entry in my recent calls. Baby daddy. Then I looked at Oliver's cheeks, puffed out with a lollipop. And suddenly, it all clicked. Some good Samaritan, after my accident, had dutifully called the contact listed as baby daddy, Thomas. So, he thought we had a child together. And that child was Oliver. Whoa, Thomas, this is nuts. I was about to explain. But the words caught in my throat as I looked at that handsome face, so worried and full of love for me. The same face I used to secretly zoom in on in bed. I stopped myself. This wasn't the Thomas the first knew. The Thomas the first remembered was always as calm as an AI. Even when we broke up 6 years ago, all he did was confirm it one last time. Anna, I'll admit, marriage and family aren't in my life plan right now, but who knows what the future holds. Are you really going to throw away our definite present for an uncertain future? When I said yes, he didn't say another word. And we really broke up. What's more, for 6 whole years, he was heartless enough to never once reach out. Not a single time. After a while, I gave up hope. But now? He was back. And he was talking about being a good husband and a good father? This was just too wild. Thomas seemed to finally notice how awkward the atmosphere was. He reached out, as if to pinch Oliver's cheek. Oliver jerked his head away. Thomas wasn't annoyed. He just smiled and pulled his hand back. His eyes were impossibly gentle. A look I hadn't seen in a very long time. I bit my lip. My shaky moral compass and my mischievous urge to play with fire were battling it out. The urge to play with fire won, no contest. This was a script handed to me by the universe itself. It would be a waste of a good car crash not to play my part. So, I'd just mess with him a little. No, I'd just see what he was like after 6 years. I let out a weak pretending to be frail. Before I could think of my next line, the hospital room door opened. Is the family for bed 16 here? My sister's nanny was about to speak, but Thomas stepped forward. Yes. I'm her. He seemed to want to say the kid's dad. But then he probably realized it wouldn't hold up in court. After a half-second of hesitation, he said, loud and clear. I'm her fiancé. I quickly buried my face in the blankets. I didn't want him to see my wicked grin stretching from ear to ear. The second Thomas was gone, I called Oliver over. After all, he owed me. I got hit by that car on my way to his school to talk to his teacher. Because that little monster had stood up in the middle of class, pointed at his teacher, and declared, Teacher, you're so loud. You've been talking for the whole class. Then, in front of everyone, he started meowing. He claimed he was fighting magic with magic. Oliver, sweetie, I'm giving you a chance to make it up to me. I forced a loving, fake smile. You used to say I was like a mom to you, right? Yeah. Aunt Anna is the best. Even better than my real mom. Easy there, champ. Can't let your mom hear that. I patted his head. Right. So, if your aunt is also your mom, then that uncle who just left is your future uncle. That makes him your daddy. The clear, childish voice rang out from the doorway. Thomas walked in, looking like he'd just won the lottery. He was practically glowing with a my life is now complete aura. He walked over, so excited he didn't know where to put his hands. In the end, he just gently touched Oliver's head. As if he were afraid of breaking this sun that had just fallen from the sky. I never thought I'd live to see the day. I was dumbfounded. Thomas looked at me. Anna, the doctor said you're mostly fine. Let's go home. A parade was marching through my head. But on the outside, I played it cool. Oh, by the way, Mrs. Davis. I started gathering my things while talking to the nanny. My sister said she's coming home early today, so you can just take Oliver back to her place. Why would Oliver go to your sister's house? Thomas suddenly asked. My heart skipped a beat. Red alert. Cover about to be blown. Luckily, my mouth was faster than my brain. Oh, well, because my sister said she wanted to give us some time alone. I'm such a genius. But Thomas frowned. Is that a good idea? The kid will be all by himself, and I could see him about to go into full-on lecture mode. I immediately pulled out the big guns. I turned, looked up at him, and my eyes instantly filled with tears. I gave him my best on the verge of shattering look. But I bit my lip. I've missed you so much. For 2,185 days. I'd just done the math. Being specific down to the day made my love seem deeper. Thomas fell silent. The tips of his ears turned red. Men. Well. Let me just say a few words to Oliver. Thomas cleared his throat, a little flustered. The alarm bells in my head started ringing again. A first grader? They're walking Intel drones, mobile recording devices. They can't keep a secret to save their lives. I knew which dad was forced to kneel on a keyboard, which mom got a nose job, and who was hiding cash behind the decorations in the fish tank. All thanks to Oliver. If I let him talk to Thomas alone, my cover would be blown on the spot. I immediately looked at Oliver. He seemed calm, though. He just took Thomas's hand and walked out. the first thing I did was call my sister. After hearing the whole drama I'd cooked up, she was speechless. "Anna, you just keep digging this hole. I'm telling you, if this blows up in your face, don't come crying to me. Don't worry, my acting skills are Venice Film Festival level, easy." A big and a small figure appeared outside the door. I hung up instantly. Oliver was holding a huge bag of snacks. He was also clutching a whole box of Ultraman cards. His face screamed pure joy. The only thing missing was my new dad is the best tattooed on his forehead. Thomas's expression, however, was weird. Like a jar of mixed pickles. Thomas took my bag, and after Oliver proudly showed me all his new loot, he said flatly, "Let's go." After we dropped Oliver off, the car was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Without the little guy's chirpy highlight reel of confusing behavior, like the teacher asked me a question, and I told her I didn't raise my hand, the teacher tried to give my friend her test paper, and she said she didn't want it, and the teacher said anyone who sings in class again has to sing in front of everyone, so we all went up, the air was filled with silence. After a moment, Thomas finally spoke. "Anna, all these years, you've been raising Oliver all by yourself?" I took a deep breath and said, without batting an eye, "Yep." The answer was 100% natural, no additives. By yourself was true. Raising Oliver was also true. Put them together, and of course it was true. Hearing my answer, Thomas fell silent. I glanced over and saw his knuckles were white from gripping the steering wheel. His eyes were red, too. "Why?" His voice trembled. "Why didn't you tell me?" I turned my head, putting on a face that was 50% hurt, 40% defiant, and 20% exhausted. "You were in the States." I sighed softly. "Besides, you said it yourself. Kids weren't in your life plan." "That's not it." He shot back almost instantly. "Back then. I was just. I mean. Later on, Thomas stumbled over his words for a while before finally forcing a smile. "It doesn't matter anymore." The light turned red. He suddenly turned his head. The neon lights from outside cast shadows across his face. His expression was unreadable. The next second, his warm palm covered the back of my hand. His fingers slid between mine. Until they were tightly interlaced. "I'm sorry, Anna." Thomas's voice was husky. "This time, I'm never letting go again." Time seemed to stretch on forever in that moment. I could clearly hear the second of silence when my heart stopped beating. My rational mind screamed a red alert. "Okay, Anna, stay calm. Think practically." Thomas was coming home with me. My apartment had a room for Oliver. In the entryway, there was Oliver's Ultraman height chart. On the balcony, a row of little shirts with Ultraman characters were drying. It was enough to keep up the charade. As my mind raced, the car pulled into the underground garage. Thomas turned off the engine. He didn't say anything. Just like he'd done countless times in the past, he leaned over to unbuckle my seatbelt. Click. Thomas didn't pull away. His clean, crisp scent enveloped me completely. I couldn't move. Amid the deafening roar of my own heartbeat, only one thought remained. Kiss him. His breath came closer and closer, brushing against my lips. And then, the kiss that had appeared in my dreams countless times finally landed. The kiss was like a wildfire. The apartment door slammed shut. Thomas lifted me right off the ground. I barely saw him move before I felt a cool rush of air on my skin. His lips and tongue tangled with mine. He used one hand to cradle the back of my head. Thomas. I felt like I couldn't breathe. He didn't respond, just carried me into the bedroom. The world spun, and his body followed, pressing me down. The mattress sank deeply. We both let out a soft sigh at the same time. Thomas was like a man possessed, trying to make up for the last 6 years all at once. A bead of sweat rolled from his temple and dripped onto my collarbone. In the middle of his ferocious assault, an inappropriate thought crossed my mind. Even though he's almost 30, compared to when he was in his early 20s. His stamina hasn't declined, and his technique has even improved. The user experience has been optimized. Spoken like a true capitalist, always trying to level up. Thomas seemed to notice my mind wandering. The hand on my waist tightened abruptly. "Focus," he commanded in my ear. Then, as if to punish my inattention, he suddenly changed his rhythm. All I could do was cling to his shoulders and tremble. Just as my vision went completely white, Thomas seemed to remember something, and his movements faltered for a second. He propped himself up, looking down at me. His eyes were swirling with a struggle I couldn't understand. "Oliver said he has another dad." His voice was incredibly hoarse. "Anna, that man. Who is he?" The sudden pause left me hanging. My brain wasn't working at all. I completely missed the storm brewing in his words. When I didn't answer, Thomas's gaze grew colder. He gripped my chin, applying a little pressure. "Talk." Without thinking, I vaguely latched onto the keyword man. "That man. He's my brother-in-law." Thomas froze. He stared at me as if I were a stranger. After a long moment, he squeezed out a single sentence from his throat. "Your brother-in-law?" I still didn't get why he was reacting this way. "Yeah, my brother-in-law." Thomas bit down hard on my lip. He didn't let me finish. The next morning, I was woken up by a dull ache that seemed to run through every inch of my body, inside and out. The thought of last night, how Thomas wouldn't let me go no matter how much I begged, made my blood boil. I was definitely not going to be nice to him today. But as I stomped out of the bedroom with a scowl, I was hit by a rich, sweet aroma. My favorite, banana waffles. The entire living room was spotless. Even the throw pillows I'd tossed on the couch were lined up perfectly. Thomas was in the kitchen, wearing my apron, busy at work. I leaned against the doorframe. "You still remember I like these?" He turned from the jars and containers on the counter. "Of course. I remember everything about you." My traitorous heart skipped a beat. Truth is, I remembered, too. I remembered he was a light, restless sleeper. That he sometimes had insomnia. 6 years had passed. I wondered if he was doing any better. At the table, Thomas cut my waffles into small pieces for me. I speared a piece dripping with syrup and popped it in my mouth. "So sweet." Thomas looked at me and raised an eyebrow. "Mine's sweeter." I rolled my eyes at him. "You're so childish." He leaned in closer. "Don't believe me? Try it." "Fine, I'll try it." Before I could finish, my lips were met with warmth. "Taste it?" Thomas murmured against my lips as we kissed. The sweetness melted between us, making the very air feel intoxicating. I placed my hands on his chest in a symbolic, entirely unconvincing gesture of resistance. "Don't. Stop messing around. You're going to be late for work." Then I added in a small grumble, "Besides, my back is killing me." Thomas let out a soft laugh, his hand tracing the curve of my spine. Then, inch by inch, it climbed back up. He lowered his head, caught the tie of my nightgown between his teeth, and gave it a tug. "You're right," Thomas whispered, kissing the hollow of my shoulder. "But, it's my company, so I think I can legally play hooky." The nightgown slid down my skin. He looked at me, his breath catching in his throat. The next second, he scooped me up. Thomas held me, turned, and pushed a dining chair out of the way with his leg. He set me down on the dining table. Before me, he leaned in, his gaze burning. "You were so tired yesterday. You really need to relax." I was about to object, but he pressed a finger to my lips. He moved closer still, his nose touching mine. "Anna, I've missed you so much." I lay on the bed, watching Thomas clean up the mess in the dining area. "Are you really not going to the office today?" Speaking of which, I still had no idea what he actually did for a living now. But he was definitely a capitalist. After all, who but a soulless capitalist would treat his ex-girlfriend of 6 years like a project he had to work on 24/7? My voice was completely shot. Damn capitalism. Nope. Thomas set the toppled glass upright. This afternoon, we'll go pick up Oliver together. I didn't think much of it and replied automatically, okay, I'll just check with my sister first. The moment the words left my mouth, the apartment went silent. After a long pause, he replied in a muffled voice, right. Oliver does spend a lot of time at your brother-in-law's house. We should probably ask if it's convenient for them. I paused for a second. Something about that felt weird. But I couldn't quite put my finger on it. Whatever. Not blowing my cover was the top priority. I cleared my throat. Of course not. Oliver loves them, and they adore him. Another dead silence. Thomas came in with a glass of water. He asked, as if it were a casual thought, speaking of which, your brother-in-law and your sister, they must have helped you out a lot over the years, right? My brain cells went into overdrive. Oh, yeah, they did. I guess you could say that. My brother-in-law always says he's like another father to Oliver. I seem to recall Thomas asking about this yesterday. Finally, a plausible story. I thought my explanation was flawless. But Thomas's face immediately darkened. Is that so? He reached out, his thumb stroking my cheek. Anna, have you forgotten that Oliver has his own father? Then, he took a deep breath, as if he'd finally made up his mind about something. I don't care what happened between you two before, but since he's your brother-in-law now, it's not appropriate for him to be Oliver's other father anymore. What the hell? Why wasn't it appropriate for my brother-in-law to be Oliver's dad? Had playing father gone to Thomas's head? Wait a second. I suddenly sensed something was off. I replayed his strange comments in my head. Oliver said he has another dad. That man. Who is he? I don't care what happened between you two before. No way. Did he think that I was having an affair with my brother-in-law? What kind of insane daytime soap opera plot was this? I was so shocked by this train of thought, so bizarre not even Mythbusters could explain it, that I was speechless. And looking at his face, so green it could probably photosynthesize. I was utterly dumbfounded. Honestly, I was starting to feel a little cruel. I was even considering telling him the truth sooner rather than later. But now? What was this? Heh. Men. His ability to jump to conclusions was truly out of this world. The devil on my shoulder once again triumphed over my shred of remaining conscience. Tell him the truth? Nah, where's the fun in that? Besides, how far would a man on the edge of madness go for me? I was actually a little curious. So, looking at Thomas's "I must be magnanimous to be a father" expression, I nodded. You're right. What happened between us is in the past. Then I bit my lip, suppressed a laugh, and added, but, my sister doesn't even care about any of that, so you. I don't care either. He said, flustered. Thomas insisted we needed to talk. I did want to talk to him about the last 6 years. However, what this guy wanted to talk about was on a completely different planet from me. We sat on the rug. The sun was shining, the moment was peaceful. But the atmosphere lasted less than 3 minutes before he shattered it. Anna. He casually fiddled with a throw pillow, but his eyes were locked on me. When did you and him meet? Him? Which him? Oh, that him. My innocent brother-in-law. Looking at his expression, which was so green it was offensive, I sneered inwardly. Okay, you want a story? I'll give you a story. I sighed, my gaze drifting into the distance, and started borrowing plot points from friends. Before Oliver was born, I was at the hospital watching the World Cup. He happened to be visiting a friend, so we started chatting in the hallway. I was rooting for Croatia, he was for France. When Croatia got that penalty kick, I was so mad that, in the heat of the moment, my water broke. I glanced at Thomas. He was about to rip all the stuffing out of that poor pillow. I continued in a sad, fatalistic tone. Since I was an unwed mother, I hadn't told my family. He was the one who stayed with me in the delivery room. He was the first man to hold Oliver. Oh, and he was the one who named him, too. It was a killer blow. I wanted to see what this fake real dad could possibly say to that sob story. Sure enough, Thomas's face went pale. After a long time, he finally managed to squeeze out a sentence. So then, how did he become your brother-in-law? Here we go. This was the line I was waiting for. I gave a bitter smile. He said we met by chance, and while he didn't have any other intentions, he saw how hard it was for a single mom with a kid and felt he should help. You know, as a good deed. But I was so vulnerable back then, I developed different feelings for him. A single tear welled up in the corner of my eye, right on cue. Later on, my sister found out about Oliver and came to the hospital to see me. She met him there. Sometimes, love just happens in an instant. They fell in love. What could I do? I just had to quietly bury those inappropriate feelings and wish them well. I looked at Thomas mournfully, delivering the final blow. But thinking about it now, what I felt for him was probably just transference. After all, at that time, you weren't there for me. Let's see you handle that, buddy. Thomas muttered to himself, when you needed someone the most, the one by your side wasn't me. He really is a good guy. Okay, the bait was set. I stood up and brushed off my pajamas. Alright, that's enough talk for now. I stretched. I have to get to work. I've got a project I need to finish. Thomas looked up, a little dazed from being pulled out of his thoughts. Work? Yeah, I said, trying to sound casual. A college kid ordered a custom miniature scene for his girlfriend for their 1,000-day anniversary. He's in a rush, so I need to get it done. Thomas's expression grew even more complicated. The concept of other people's boyfriends had clearly dealt him a second blow. I clenched my jaw, using every ounce of my acting ability to maintain the sad, can't bear to look back expression on my face. I walked stiffly into my study and burst out laughing. Suffer, you big dope. That afternoon, Thomas and I ran into my brother-in-law right as we got to the elementary school. He was surprised to see us, too. With a feeling of the show's about to start, I made the introductions. Mark, this is my friend, Thomas. Thomas, this is my brother-in-law, Mark. Thomas was clearly not happy with being introduced as my friend. The force of his handshake looked like it could give my brother-in-law a compound fracture on the spot. Hey, Anna, my brother-in-law said with a helpless look. Your sister must have forgotten I was picking Oliver up today. Sorry you came all this way for nothing. It was rare for Mark to have free time, so of course he was taking Oliver home. But that meant I had to figure out what to tell Thomas. In the few seconds I hesitated, Oliver came running out. He first threw himself into my arms, then suddenly noticed my brother-in-law and grabbed on. It breaks my heart. Thomas was stunned. His eyes filled with guilt and sympathy. As if I were some tragic, pure-hearted heroine who had suffered for love. Seriously, was he always this lovesick? Anna, let's go. Over by the gate, Mark had finished his call and was waving us over. I hurried to join them. From behind me, I heard Thomas's dejected voice. I'm the one who pushed you away. What right do I have to be jealous of him? Oh my God, I was going to laugh myself into a heart attack. Although, I did feel a little bad. At KFC. Anna, what are you guys having? Mark, I want. He doesn't know what you like, a chilly voice cut in. Thomas's face was a perfect billboard for I'm extremely unhappy, but I'm not going to say why. I almost burst out laughing. I looked up, feigning innocence at my very confused brother-in-law. Mark, do you know what my favorite thing to get at KFC is? My brother-in-law gave me a have you lost your mind look. No idea. Same as your sister? Original recipe? A specific piece? The thigh? Bingo. Upon hearing the correct answer, Thomas's CPU practically started smoking. I pretended to be thrilled. See? Mark, you know me best. My brother-in-law just shook his head, exasperated. You two have always had similar tastes anyway. You like basically all the same things, yet you're always going on about how different your personalities are. If you ask me, they're nothing alike. Thomas suddenly, rudely, cut my brother-in-law off. The air froze. He seemed to realize his mistake, added a quick sorry, and went back to drinking his soda, not saying another word. I quickly ducked my head and pretended to drink my soda, too. Otherwise, would have sprayed it all over his face. After we finished eating, Oliver tugged on Mark's hand. Daddy, can we go home now? Thomas looked at me, his eyes searching. You're not going to. Your auntie's house? Oliver shook his head like a bobblehead. Nope. I want to go home with Daddy. Thomas's face fell completely. The way he looked at me and Oliver, you'd think we were two heartbreakers who had just dumped him. Okay, maybe I was being a little cruel. On the way home, I kept my head down, replying to texts. I couldn't wipe the smile off my face. Is that your brother-in-law? Thomas's gloomy voice came from beside me. Yep, it is. It really was him. He must have been completely baffled by Thomas's behavior. He'd sent me a few messages full of humanitarian concern. I know it's not my place, but I feel like your friend is a little emotionally unstable. You should be careful. Of course, the most important thing is that you're happy. I mean, your sister and I were starting to think you didn't even like guys anymore. I imagined Mark's usual poker face as he carefully crafted that fatherly warning. I couldn't help it. I let out a pft at the screen. I sent him a voice message back. Oh, Mark, it's not what you think. I can't really talk right now, but I'll explain later, okay? To sound extra sweet, I even added a little lilt to my voice. The man next to me's face grew even darker. The moment we walked in the door, Thomas slammed me against the wall. Wait. Hold on. No waiting. Can't give you time to explain things to him. He was frantic. He devoured me, questioning me between kisses. Anna, is he still the one you're thinking about? My head was spinning. Yes, I'm still thinking about you, you idiot. I know I don't have the right yet to make you look only at me. He saw the tears being forced from the corners of my eyes. But I'll make you forget him completely. He was talking way too much. I couldn't resist teasing him. How? And then I witnessed the full, creative range of a true capitalist. The sheets were practically wrung dry. A healthy dose of male competition is clearly a good thing. If only my poor back could take it. Thomas stayed in that possessive state for days. Finally, one afternoon, I have no idea what he said to Oliver, but the little guy actually, for the first time ever, said he wanted to come home with us. Excellent. Time for you to get a taste of homework duty. I sat on the couch, eating chips and listening to the sounds coming from Oliver's room. At first, it was just Thomas's patient, gentle, and persuasive voice, practically breaking down knowledge into bite-sized pieces to feed to Oliver. Okay, Oliver, look. Wears a big red crown, dressed in colorful clothes, sings a song at dawn, and wakes everyone up. What's the answer to that riddle? There was a moment of silence, then Oliver's clear voice piped up. Mommy. I almost choked on my chip. How could it be Mommy? C. Sings a song at dawn. Does Mommy sing in the morning? Come on, let's look at it again. Another moment of silence, then Oliver's uncertain voice. Is it Auntie? I was laughing so hard I was pounding the wall. Thomas's voice was getting louder. I could tell he was suppressing his anger. But he already sounded like he was grinding his teeth. Mom bought Timmy a new toy for $6.50. What are 2 different ways she could pay for it? How could the answer be Venmo and Zelle? Well, if not that, then a gift card? Then came a sigh. Never mind. When I heard that, I cracked up. Never mind? Wasn't that my go-to line right before my blood pressure shot up to 180? The prelude to Let the World Burn. After that, the voices in the room got quieter. I couldn't quite make them out. An hour and a half later, the door opened. Thomas came out, holding Oliver's hand. Both of them had strange expressions. Oliver looked relieved, like he'd finally been set free. But Thomas's face was unreadable. Anna. He walked over to me. Oliver and I agreed. Once he's done with his homework, he's going back to his own house for tonight. Before I could react, he leaned in, his lips brushing my ear. And then, we can do some homework of our own. You and me. Again? Nerds really aren't normal people. Even homework could get him going. I decided then and there to talk to Oliver's teacher tomorrow. She had to assign more homework. Tonight, Thomas was gentle. The past few nights, the bed had been a battlefield. We had plundered each other's bodies frantically. But neither of us found peace. Tonight was different. It was a lingering tenderness. Like a soft spring rain that never stopped, soaking me completely. He kissed every inch of my skin, melting me into a puddle. Afterward, Thomas held me in his arms, his chin resting on my forehead. I was a little dazed. This Thomas was so much like the Thomas from 6 years ago. Seeing me staring blankly at the ceiling, he chuckled softly and planted a kiss on my forehead. His fingers brushed across my cheek, tracing my eyebrows, my eyes, and finally resting on my lips. He stroked them tenderly, as if he were building up the courage for something. Finally, he spoke. Actually, during my first break after I got to the States, I bought a plane ticket home. My heart lurched. This was the first time since we'd reconnected that we were truly, actually talking about back then. It was the conversation I had always wanted. Thomas met my gaze. I wanted to come back and find you. I wanted to tell you I had no idea what I was saying when we broke up. All I knew was that I couldn't stand a single day of a future without you. His voice was low and raspy. But right before I left, I saw Kevin's post on his social feed. It was a picture of you two at that music festival. You were standing next to him, smiling so happily. Thomas paused. When I saw that picture, I saw 2 possible futures. In one future, I selfishly come back for you, pull you back into my life. Maybe I'd try to change, or maybe I'd end up disappointing you all over again. In the other future, you're just like in that photo. You're with him, living a bright, happy life. Anna, tell me, what was I supposed to choose? So that was it. That was the reason he hadn't come back for 6 years. My heart was a mix of emotions. Sorrow, helplessness, and a little bit of an urge to laugh. For instance, who the hell was Kevin? I dug through the dusty corners of my memory to find that name. Kevin? The upperclassman who was a ticket scalper? It took me a while longer to vaguely recall the music festival Thomas was talking about. I had no idea which one it was anymore. But my idol was definitely performing. I remembered the tickets sold out in a second. I was hitting F5 until my keyboard was smoking, but I couldn't get a single one. In desperation, I posted a melodramatic My Last Will and Testament on my social feed. I was getting ready to do battle with the scalpers online. Then Kevin commented, "I'll see what I can do," and pulled me back from the brink of paying 5 times the face value. As for the picture, if I was smiling like a love-struck fool, it was definitely because my idol had winked at me. That was a highlight worthy of my epitaph. Who wouldn't lose their mind? What did it matter if I was standing next to Kevin or a telephone pole? It didn't. I ranted silently in my head, trying to use anger to push down the sudden feeling of emptiness. So, Thomas, just like me, had never moved on. I heard myself explaining, we never got together. I don't even like Kevin. I only like you. The last part of that honest confession got stuck in my throat. Because I suddenly realized something. All of Thomas's devotion right now was built on a massive lie. What would happen if he found out the truth? As I fell silent, Thomas finished the sentence for me. You don't like Kevin. You don't like your brother-in-law. You only like me. He said each word slowly and deliberately. And I only like you. My eyes shot wide open. Thomas, actually. I instinctively started to confess everything. But he gently pressed a finger to my lips. Anna, I know what you're thinking. His voice was soft. You think I only came back because of Oliver, don't you? He saw the shock in my eyes and gave a bitter smile. If I let you believe that, it just means I'm still the same idiot I was 6 years ago. Thomas took a deep breath. Letting you go because of one argument, because of one misunderstanding, was the stupidest thing I've ever done in my life. Luckily, that phone call gave me an excuse to find you again. I came looking for you simply because I couldn't stand another day without you. Simply because I love you. He rushed to get all the words out. I love you. It has nothing to do with you being a baby mama. It's because you're you. And whether the child is Oliver, our fake son, or a real child of our own in the future, my love for you will never change. I was completely stunned. You knew? Seeing my expression, Thomas smiled. Of course. He raised an eyebrow. From the moment Oliver calculated that our family had 5 people, I knew something wasn't right. There's no way our son would be that bad at math. So, I just had to ask him a few questions, Thomas added. And then, he spilled everything. Including the fact that his aunt had been single for 6 years. Thomas. I laughed through my tears, looking at this man who was both familiar and a stranger, a storm of emotions swirling inside me. My voice caught in my throat. Thomas. He sighed and pulled me into a tight hug. Anna, I'm sorry. Even though the kid was fake, every single word I said was real. I'm so sorry that I was so immature back then. And I'm sorry. I'm so late. I cried in his arms for a long time. Until all the longing, the hurt, and the insecurity had been washed away, I finally grew calm. I reached up and smoothed the frown from his brow. You're not late. As long as it's you, you're never late. Hearing that, Thomas didn't say anything else, just pulled me tighter into his embrace. Something warm and wet fell onto my neck. After a long while, Thomas finally let me go. But, Anna, he said, pausing for a moment. There is one thing I still don't get. Why was I a baby daddy? Thomas. I snuggled against him and looked up. Carry me to the balcony. He frowned. What are you doing on the balcony at night? You'll catch a cold. I don't care, I want to go. Please carry me. I drew out the last word. As expected, he couldn't resist. He stared at me for a few seconds, then lifted me into his arms. Okay, but promise me you won't try to seduce me on the balcony. I immediately put on my most innocent expression. What are you talking about? Your mind is in the gutter. Although, the thought had crossed my mind, too. The noise we made woke up Tiger. The moment he saw Thomas, his fur stood on end. He arched his back, his tail twitching like a live wire. He had the perfect touch my mom and I'll scratch your eyes out look of a loyal cat. Clearly, after 6 years, he didn't recognize his dad at all. When he realized it was me, Tiger finally relaxed. He rolled over at my feet, letting out a pitiful meow, as if tattling on the intruder. Thomas stared at Tiger, his voice changing completely. You kept him? I was a little surprised. The tiny kitten from back then had grown into a giant furball. And he still recognized him? Yeah. I've had him since 6 years ago. Thomas's arms tightened around me. I'm sorry. He repeated in my ear. Anna, I'm so sorry. I leaned against Thomas's warm chest, silent. Tiger was the catalyst for our breakup. It was because of him that I had jokingly changed Thomas's contact name to Baby Daddy. And it was while arguing about whether or not to adopt him that we had our big fight. The conversation spiraled from getting a cat to family, marriage, and the future. In the middle of all the questions, I heard the answer that broke my heart. At least for now, I have no idea how to be in a marriage, how to build a family. Maybe I don't even know how to love someone. At the time, I couldn't understand, couldn't accept it. And so, we broke up. Feeling Thomas's heartbeat now, I suddenly felt a sense of release. Luckily, the young man who was once afraid of the responsibility of even owning a cat had grown up. And I had grown up, too. We were both still here. And we would never be apart again. I sniffled, pointed to the litter box in the corner of the balcony, which was emitting a certain aroma. I looked up at him and gave an order that was 6 years late. Thomas. Yeah, I'm here. Go clean your son's litter box.